Ben, everything is set.
Yep.
Okay, so welcome everyone. We're here live from the Data Foundry headquarters in London. We're in Devonshire Square. Today joining me, Lee from the Blooming Founders. Thanks for coming today. First episode of Data Talks. Data Talks is a series of live interviews that we're running with a series of entrepreneurs from the London area internationally. And what we're trying to do is sort of to inspire and sort of to reach the mass through these tools that we now have, like live interviews and sort of classic video as well. So a bit of background. Lou is a former McKinsey consultant, been around for a while.
Very long time ago.
And she's now the founder, and she's now currently running Blooming Founders. So, Lou, welcome to the show. And yeah, talking about your transition from the corporate world, from McKinsey to starting Blooming Founders, how did that happen? And sort of what's your reason behind doing such a big move?
Yeah, so I actually there was another company before, like on my corporate career path. I left McKinsey in 2009, and the reason actually why I left McKinsey at that time was because, as we all know, there was a recession going on, so it was a bad time in general. And I'm personally I'm interested in innovation, growth, sort of expansion, and doing like new things. And at that time, I was just not the right time to do these things.
Totally.
So I kind of like left McKinsey at the time to then join Procter & Gamble, another big corporation. So it's the world's biggest FMCG company, and I worked on the world's biggest haircare brand, which was Pantene, or Pantene for the people in the US. And so I spent there a couple of years, almost 4 actually, like working in haircare, launching products across Western Europe, and then left P&G also because there was a change happening in the organization, and I think that's not nothing new anymore, right? It happens like more and more often, and then you just suddenly realize that, or you start to reflect about your own professional career path, and you think about, is that really still my path, right? I have to say, for all of the companies I've worked for, which are McKinsey and P&G, I loved working for them for as long as it lasted, right? So, but when you feel that it's not the right thing anymore, then you just try to find something else. And for me, that something else was entrepreneurship.
So do you feel like you're sort of corporate renegade in terms of moving from a corporate world to being an entrepreneur yourself and inspiring entrepreneurs with Blooming Founders?
Yes, I mean, I guess now I would say yes. At the time, I wouldn't have thought so. I just wanted to do something where I could have more control of what I want to do, create the things like bring my ideas to life, right? To be honest, when I left the corporate, I had no idea about the startup world. I was literally just starting out my own business, and Blooming Founders was my third business as well. So like the entrepreneurial journey
Makes a lot of sense.
has taught me a lot, right? And now when I think about now starting and running a business, I think about completely different things.
Sure. And why London? Why? Because you had many opportunities to surely travel around the world and see different cities, perhaps San Francisco as a sort of startup capital of the world. If you may, why London?
Yeah, so I started my first business in Zurich, in Switzerland.
Okay.
And because I had no idea about the startup world, I just thought, oh, let's just start my own business, right? And I was in Switzerland at the time, but then I realized that Zurich was kind of small as a place, and also not as dynamic as I wanted my environment to be. And I really believe that you need to sort of be part of a community and other people that help you push forward, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because it's very hard to do it by yourself, and also to motivate yourself, also to learn and just always sort of be on top of things. So then I looked around on the planet, I would say, but I never really considered San Francisco purely because it was just too far.
Okay.
You know, it was kind of like, I mean, like obviously I could have done it, but you know, like all of my friends are in Europe and my family as well. So I looked at London and I considered London and Berlin.
Sure.
But I thought London was bigger, more vibrant, more international, and more advanced at the time, and I think it still is.
So Blooming Founders, you've been running it for a while now.
Yeah.
And what's the aim behind Blooming Founders?
So the aim is really to inspire and encourage more women to become entrepreneurs and go into startups, and also help them to succeed on their journey. Because I have realized myself, you know, it's not easy. It's actually quite counterintuitive, especially if you went to business school and have worked in corporates before, and also it's really it's quite lonely. You know, I was a solo founder for all of my ventures, and I had to meet the right people. I had to build a completely new network, and I have to learn a lot of things that just took time, effort, money, you know, all of these things. And I just think that, you know, there's no support structure in the ecosystem out there at the moment that would have help me in a more efficient way. And that's why I'm building, and that's the purpose of Blooming Founders, is to build the support structure that takes into account the challenge that women have. But also, I mean, it's a very inclusive proposition, because my events are open to everybody. You have been to my events, right?
Sure.
So it is about pushing women forward, but it's making women part of the whole ecosystem, right? Yeah.
And currently, how many members have actually joined your community?
So the actual, the closer community, which I run on Facebook, it's a close kind of like group there. It's about 500 people, and then I have a following of about like 3,000 on, well, I probably like newsletter, social media, meetup in total is probably gonna be around like 4,500, 5,000 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about, since we are a data company here, Data Foundry and Kibola, what sort of metric do you use to sort of keep track of your community?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because it's very hard to do that. It's not like, you know, you have these like typical tech startup where you have like one key metric that you try to optimize on. So I follow different things. The newsletter is a very good indicator, which is why actually I started with the newsletter, which is about like 3,000 people. And there I can measure opening rates. Like the newsletter is a curated newsletter that where I provide, you know, sort of links to other events in London, not just mine, but other people who do great events, and then also links and, you know, sort of to things that are good to know, or food for thought pieces. So I do kind of like track opening rates from also the links also, because that gives me an indication of what the community is interested in, which I can use then to produce better events myself. Right, and then on the other side, I have the closer community that I run on Facebook, and there I have an application form. So that is a type form, and I've designed and created myself, and I kind of like just put in questions that I would like that would help me understand the community better. So anything from demographics to the stage of the company to whether they're solo founders or they have kids. I was really interested to see whether women are solo founders or not, because I'm a solo founder, and most of the people I saw in my environment are also solo founders. And I was like, is that like a thing, you know? And it's a pattern, and you know what it is? Like 2/3 of the community are solo founders, which actually, you know, nobody sort of has discovered that before, right? But it actually means that, especially if you're looking to build a scalable company that is not just yourself, one of the big challenges for the women entrepreneurs is to build a team. Right, because you have to find the people to work with you, and you know, build something more scalable, and that is something that I don't think, you know, there's no solution to that. Basically, you know, it's literally all these women are trying to, you know, network and find stuff, but I would have never sort of, you know, validated that if I wouldn't have collected the data, right? I have about like 700 responses to that form, so it's quite robust.
Talking about sort of validation, what made you feel like okay, this blooming founder thing is working. What made you click and made you realize that what you're doing is actually working here within the community?
So in terms of traction, definitely, the events. I mean, so the number of people who come to my events, also the people that repeatedly come to my events, right? And so it's a matter of that, which you can measure, but also, I guess, the qualitative feedback, basically, right? I mean, when people come to my events, they say, oh, thank you for creating this environment, creating the space, or creating these things for us. It's really helpful. So, I think it's a combination of sort of things that you see, right? The attendance and people like interested in coming to, like your things, and like also applying to the network, right? But also the qualitative feedback from people that it's something that is needed in the space. It's something that they have never seen before. They are so happy they found me.
Sure.
These type of things. So
I was quite surprised a couple of nights ago that I attended to one of your events, and every single person I talked to, they were super excited about the community. They were really telling me how they felt part of the Blooming Founders and they're actual members of it. It's not simply a Facebook group or an online platform.
Yeah.
In terms of social media, since we talked about Facebook, what other tools and what other platforms you use to sort of keep track of your community and sponsor your sort of events?
So Twitter works really well for me. So Twitter is probably my main social media channel, and I don't really track, but I keep an eye on like the numbers of impressions and stuff like that. On Twitter, I think like the best month I generated about like 400,000 impressions per month, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
The average one is more like 200,000, I would say.
Which is still solid.
Exactly. And so I mean, I do like sort of test here and there. So for example, I have a thing in the newsletter that I send out every Wednesday, and there's a mantra for the day, or like it's something more inspirational. But there's also a link which is click to tweet. So then I measure and I see kind of like, what mantras actually people like. Because then I have, on the same day, I have to tweet about it, basically, right? Or the next day, sometimes.
And I'm sure you sort of measure, like, sort of traction based on hashtags as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you try to, like, sort of see these things, and then you kind of use data to, like, have a better sense of the community and, like, what people like and what people don't like. So Twitter works really well for me, and I'm literally just starting Instagram. Because Instagram, it's the fastest growing social media channel, right? There are 400 million users active every month, and it's a very female channel. So, it's definitely a channel I have to be. But every channel has its own dynamics and ways how to build community and communicate. So it takes resources, really.
So do you run the social media side on yourself, or you're sort of one-man army, or one-woman army in this case? Or you employ different individuals to manage it?
So I work with several people. So at the moment I have the summer who are helping me, which are great. And then we got a lot of summer interns. And I also have 5 people who work with me and help me on a volunteer basis. But they help me with the curation of the newsletter, approving the people to the Facebook community, interviewing people, because I'm also starting a blog series soon to promote the women in the network, right, and promote their ideas and their businesses. So all of that takes time, to kind of create the content for, and so I'm very happy and I guess grateful to have all of these
collaborators.
Yeah, collaborators.
And sort of talking about Blooming Founders, I've recently seen that you published a book, or the book is on the way.
It's in the making. It's in the making.
What is the book about? What's the scope behind it?
Yeah, so the book is really because I've discovered in the space as well that there's a lack of role models, right? If I would ask my community, who's the female founder you find most inspirational, people have to think. Because if I would ask you, who's the female founder you find most amazing.
Sure, it's good. It might take
you have to think.
Exactly,
a few seconds. Then you may say, I've heard of this person in Forbes and there's great, Forbes and Inc.com who have curated lists, TechCrunch, but people have to think, right? And whereas if I would ask you for a male founder, like something like a great founder, Elon Musk, right? Like, Mark Zuckerberg, all of these people.
That's a good
so
point.
you don't have to think about, and that is a problem, really, because as Sheryl Sandberg actually said, for the corporate world even, you can't be what you can't see, right? So if you are venturing out into this world that is very challenging, very risky, very sort of like, you're on your own trying to do some stuff, then it really helps to have a role model, right? It's almost like your future self, right, that you aspire to. And women don't have that, unfortunately. The media doesn't cover, the stories of the female founders as much as they do with, I guess, the stereotypical founder. And therefore, I saw a gap and an opportunity to provide these stories and share these stories. And but then I also didn't want to do like the typical interview format of, oh, let's sit down and like I ask you a few questions, because that's great, but I wanted to dig a level deeper. So what I've done is I've contacted a lot of successful female founders, because they are out there, just nobody knows about them. And I've asked them to write a letter to the next generation. So if they would sit down and just write about what they think is the most impactful, or the most impactful things for the future generations, what would they write about? And surprisingly, it's not always about fundraising. As a founder and as an entrepreneur, like it's a variety of things, right? Fundraising obviously for one of them, but it's really interesting what people wrote about. And so the book, in essence, is a compilation of all of these letters.
Okay.
And there are 66 contributing authors, and together they have generated $1 billion in revenue. So they're quite substantial business women with lots of experience. And
that's brilliant, actually. When is it going to be available?
So it's finishing. I'm submitting the manuscript today, which is crazy because I've been working on this for the last 6 months. Then it goes into typesetting, so like the layout and the formatting of the book. But it's going to be launched on the 15th of September.
So hardcover.
It's a paperback hardcover, yes, and very likely also as an ebook. But the launch party is on the 15th of September in Shoreditch in London, and it's going to be exciting.
Make sure we be there.
The title is Dear Female Founder. Yeah, because the idea is that every chapter is a letter, and every letter starts with Dear Female Founder.
That's brilliant. Talking about data.
Data Girls.
Yeah, Data Girls. It's a workshop they run on a monthly basis, more or less. You took part of it. You run a keynote and sort of a deeper session of blooming founders within Data Girls. There's always this constant theme that continuously pops up, which is the fact that companies should be data-driven. And most of the times, individuals don't really understand what being data-driven means, what being data-driven is, and how to actually achieve that. Would you consider Blooming Founders a data-driven company or community?
Definitely. I mean, I think so. Being data-driven is super important. People, just I mean, I guess as much as I'm a creative person, but you can't make any decisions if you don't have data, right? I mean, I am like, I'm all for also like, intuition and gut feeling, but there's just some things, where you just have to have a reality check, and the reality check is data, right? You can't validate or, like your business idea if you don't collect data. Now, data doesn't have to be, big data and like artificial intelligence and all like scary algorithms and, things that you think you would never understand. It's really simple, I mean, I'm measuring so many things as to where, I mean, like even like, the newsletter, right? I mean, I look at what links people click on, right? And that gives me data to produce better events because I know what people want. Like, every business owner and entrepreneur and founder has to understand what their customers want, right? And for that, you need to, ask them, do surveys, or do like, sort of track their behavior online as to, to understand how you can serve them better, basically, right? And that is really what data-driven means to me. And then at some point, the data integration is really important too, because we collect these data, like data points through different sources, right? But then you don't really have an overview of it, and there are some insights you can get that just kind of lifts your understanding to the higher level, right? So if I would understand, okay, how does a person even apply to my community, right? Did she, come to one of my events? Did she find me online? Did she find me on Twitter? Did she, what did she do, basically, right? It helps me to then market, to this group of people better, because I know, which channels they're using, right? And then also I would, in terms of monetization, so thinking about the revenue, you think, okay, which channel actually provide me the people with the highest lifetime value, right? Is it offline networking sometimes, right? Is it sales calls on certain things? So there's so many things basically in the business that are happening, and if you don't put data around it, it's just so overwhelming basically. I mean, you can have an incredibly sort of responsive gut, but your gut is not responsive to everything. For sure.
You mentioned something interesting there, lifetime value.
Yeah.
What's sort of the plan for 5 years plan, 3 years plan for the Blooming Founders, and where do you see sort of yourself and the community in that amount of time?
Yeah, that's a very good question too, because it's kind of like open space. It's like blue ocean, right? Because I'm literally trying to create a support structure within the ecosystem. So essentially tackling all of the different stages of the company, from people who are non-entrepreneurs but are thinking about it, right, to kind of helping them to inspire, to educate, to provide the community, to promote them, and then potentially also to fund them, right? And that's long term, obviously. But de facto, I am running the community. I'm doing lots of events. I publish, the newsletter, the blog to kind of help promote people, the book to inspire, and ideally in the future, I think the product pipeline would always be, you have the book that kind of gets you into it, or you come to the event that gets you into it. Then, if you're already sort of a self-starter, then you can join the community and you can just kind of be part of that community, and that helps you push forward and share advice and expertise and experience. If you think you need a little bit more help because you're stuck in a certain situation, and I'm talking about especially the women who are working for corporates, law firms, all of these places where you have a great career, it's quite comfortable, but it doesn't really make you happy, but you're too comfortable to move away from it, and you kind of sort of is bridging that risk. For that, I am developing the education program, which will help you transition, right? So that's kind of in the pipeline for next year. But then also once you graduate from that, you join the community, because then you're already going, right? Then you have the community, and then hopefully through sort of nurturing the community and just elevating the level, we would see women who are then looking to raise funding and sort of get outside investment to take things to the next level and scale. And that's where I would be looking at the investment side. It could be partnering with other people, it could be even raising my own fund. Possibilities are endless, right? But I mean, that part probably has a horizon of 3 years. So
makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I guess we'll wrap it up. I think it was brilliant, great conversation. Truly enjoyed it. It was great to have you here, Lou. Hopefully we'll see you soon for some Data Girls events, and you guys can check it out on our Facebook page or Blooming Founders. Where can people find you online?
So I'm online on bloomingfounders.com, right? So people can drop me an email. If you want to drop me an email, it's lu@bloomingfounders.com, or it's @bloomingfounders on Twitter. Yeah.
And make sure you check out her book. It's coming out in September, October. Sure, we're gonna retweet, repost a bunch of stuff on our pages too. Yeah, it was great. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time. Yeah.